Welcome to this episode of Wanderlust Solo Women Travel Unscripted. Real women, real stories, real journeys, and no filter. Join Gina, your host, to share the experiences and stories of solo female travelers and advocates from all over the world, with a mission to empower women of all ages, backgrounds, and life stages to embrace solo female travel with confidence and enthusiasm, while being authentic and real, unscripted. Confronting the challenges and apprehensions many women face when considering solo adventures, providing inspiration to break through those barriers. Sharing how life transitions, loss, and trauma can lead to amazing experiences, rediscovery, and life journeys. The good, the bad, and the ugly of authentic and honest travel. So let's throw out the script, get comfy, and jump right into this episode.
We welcome to the show Erica Forrest. She is the founder of Trip Scholars, a travel education company helping people to learn more about the world and themselves through travel tips. She is also a certified travel coach, published author, and host of Conversations for Curious Travelers podcast. Drawing on over 30 years of experience in education as well as discoveries from her own journeys, Erica empowers curious people to transform their excitement for travel into deeper understanding and discovery through thoughtful designed resources, coaching, classes, and workshops. She has been a guest on NPR and featured in Wonder Magazine, Best Life, BuzzFeed, Apartment Therapy, and more than 55 travel sites. Join me and Erica as we chat about true connections and great ways to really experience intentional travel. Grab a cuppa and let's get comfy. Hello and welcome everyone to Wanderlust Solo Women Travel Unscripted. And today I'm so excited to welcome Erica. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Gina. I've really been looking forward to our conversation today.
Awesome. And she is joining us from the West Coast of the United States, up in Seattle. Like I said, we have women from all over the world, so it's nice to get a nice variance of everybody. Now, in your bio that came at the start of the episode, we sort of went into everything about what you do, and we'll dive into that into the episode. But first, our signature pass the parcel question. For those that haven't joined in before, we always start with a question that a previous guest has asked, and then we pass another question on to the next guest. So it's just a neat way to sort of start an episode, something a little bit different. So the question from our previous guest, which was Siska, is: what is the most powerful lesson you have learned from your travels? And I think this really suits you as well.
I actually I cannot believe how perfect this question is for me, because this is what I strive to do through my business and spend a lot of time thinking about. So I really appreciate Siska's question. I think the most profound and powerful thing that I have learned through travel is my place in the human story, that it really connects me to other people around the planet and throughout history, and makes me so aware of how precious this planet is that we're all sharing together right now. So thank you for the question. Thank you, Siska, for the question. And I think it's a great tradition that you have on your show.
Yeah, it just gives a little bit of variety and also perspective from other people, and it's just a nice way. And it sort of leads into the question, which we're going to sort of chat about, is like how you can create more meaningful and powerful experiences with your traveling, which I think leads on really great from this question. And, from what you do with Trip Scholars, I think, it's really interesting topic, and we need to, especially I think now with AI and all this artificial generated content we're getting, to have more meaningful and powerful experiences. And travel is one way to do that. How can you share that message?
How do I share it?
Yeah.
I have found different ways to share it. So I started Trip Scholars about 6 years ago. And I had been a high school science teacher, and I had been a Montessori school director, and we eventually ended up homeschooling our kids. And homeschooling is a bit of a misnomer because we weren't home very often. And instead we were doing a fair amount of travel, and even, at home we would be at museums and performances and all of that. And I was really recognizing how valuable it was to learn more about the places that we were visiting before we went there, and to revisit them, and from a variety of perspectives, everything from, doing art projects related to the place, or learning some of the language, or reading reading fairy tales, watching documentaries, all of those kinds of things. And I realized so many other people also want this rich, multifaceted approach to travel, and that it really enhances it in so many ways. And yet it's very time consuming. I recognized it was quite a privilege, to be able to find those resources. And so I was inspired to try to make some kind of a hub, some kind of a way that could be more accessible to more people who were looking to learn about the places they visited. So I started Trip Scholars, the website. Originally, it was like a crowdsourced repository for people to share their favorite resources. I liked the idea behind the word scholar, that it is both a teacher and a student, and that I think all of us are both teachers and students. So that was my original idea. I knew nothing about technology. I built this huge, cumbersome website so that people could input their favorite resources. And then I realized that is not how the internet works. It was much too clunky of a website. So I restructured it and changed it. And now it's more a traditional blog post. If you are especially interested in travel around art, there's a lot of different articles about how you can incorporate art or how you can visit museums more often and more affordably and get more out of your museum experiences, or nature-focused travel, history-focused travel. We also have articles on different locations. So like if you are going to a particular place, what are some different things that you could do before you go? And then over time, I really was recognizing how important it is to provide resources for how we all can learn more about ourselves. Not just the world, but how can we learn more about ourselves through travel? And that was when I was introduced to travel coaching. I always knew I wanted to work one-on-one with people and help them find ways to improve their trips and resources. I didn't know that there was already this other idea out there. So like you, I really loved going through that travel coaching program. And so now, in addition to the website, I also do travel coaching, and then I have workshops and classes. And then I recently started a podcast as well. So that's how I get it out.
And I love that. We're sort of on a very similar journey, we both did our travel coach training, which was amazing. That's actually how we connected. And, we were just talking before this episode about, all the skills we have learned, building websites and even like doing a podcast. We're forever learning. And I think that's a great thing about travel is you are forever learning. And that's really what like intentional and purposeful travel is about. It's not
Yes.
just about going on a holiday is great. And I don't want to take the importance of going on a good holiday, but I think in a world of where things aren't necessarily as authentic, we're seeing a lot more imagery and even, text and copy that isn't genuine. I think having authentic and purposeful travel experiences is really important. And you really can dive into this because this is what you love educating people about, is how it leads into richer experiences. So what are some ways you could tell listeners how they can do this for themselves or experience it or, make it accessible so it's not like they have to sit down and, learn a whole lot of stuff before they go?
100%. Yeah. I think that travel and learning should be joyful. That, as I mentioned, we ended up eventually homeschooling. We did an approach to homeschooling that was very child-led. And so it was based on finding what the kids were curious about and providing resources so that they could dive into it and enjoy it even more. And it led to exceptionally rich, deep learning and understanding of the world. And I think we can carry a very similar approach into travel. But because travel is so broad, as you well know, the topic of travel, and as all your listeners know, the topics around travel are just so broad that I came up with an approach and an acronym for kind of a way to organize ideas around how we can improve our travels. And I call it the learn through travel approach. It is an acronym, and it's different things that we can do before, during, and after a trip to really get the most out of it. And so before we travel, we can, L is for listen to ourselves, really take some time for deeper reflection. E is educate ourselves. So how can we learn more about the places that we're visiting? And as you say, in a joyful and interesting way, in a way that it doesn't feel like homework. A is advancing our travel skills so that we can travel more and travel better. And R is while we're traveling, how can we revitalize ourselves? How can we stay fully present? Just like you were talking about, travel in many ways has become awfully performative. How can we be genuinely present and get the most out of that experience? And then N is nourishing our travel dreams so that when we come home, we can integrate what we've learned and how we have become back into our lives. So I'd be happy to kind of dive into some of those if you like.
I'd love to, share that more, because I think that's, and especially most people too are struggling with finances. Travel isn't necessarily up there, in the list of things that must be done. But I think if you are going to do it, you want to get the most out of the experience. And I think this is a great way to do that, because it's not just a external thing, it becomes an internal thing as well.
Yeah,
So
well said.
definitely dive in.
Well said. Well, I know that you, starting with the listen piece, I know this is a big part of what you do with your travel coaching and on the retreats that you offer people as well. So really taking that time to reflect on what it is that we are wanting to experience out of this particular trip, that each trip is so very different and we're wanting something different out of each of them. So I think a good example, last year, my husband and I went to Scotland to celebrate our 30th anniversary. And it just so happened that 3 of the people that I had gotten to work with as a travel coach were also going to Scotland in that same year, not together, as different trips. So it was super interesting to me to support and hear stories from 4 different people who were all traveling to the same place. And by doing this reflection at the beginning, thinking about what do I want from this particular trip, everyone crafted a very personal, very meaningful, really profound trip. So, for example, my husband and I, that trip was about connection and celebrating. So we thought about what do we really most enjoy doing. So we went and saw a number of archaeological sites and UNESCO sites. We love getting to see live music in pubs, and there's nothing as fun as a great session in a pub. So we got to see lots of that. We like nice peaty whiskey, so we went to the whiskey fesh on Isla. It was very personal to us because we took the time to think about that. Whereas one of the other people I was coaching at the time, she was just becoming an empty nester and had not traveled solo, had not traveled internationally, and had some serious health challenges. And so she did a beautiful introspection and really thought about what was she wanting. And instead of it being, one of the standard tours of Scotland and seeing the top sites, she realized she really wanted to be out in nature. She wanted to be with animals. So she picked a trip where she did a lot of workaway programs on farms and found Airbnbs on farms and had a very unique and special and empowering trip because she had thought that through. I'm sure you have questions that when you're coaching folks, really help them get deeper and deeper and deeper into what it is that I'm wanting out of this trip. And then once you know those things, everything else becomes so much easier about planning your trip. You can make itinerary choices. You can make budget choices in those early stages, thinking like tuning into your body, paying attention to your health or your mental health or that of the people that you're traveling with. And if you know early on that you don't do well in high stimulation places, then you'll know how to craft the rest of your trip.
Yeah.
You might decide, I want to go to these museums that have low stimulation times early in the morning, that I want to get to the airport with enough time to go into, airports have a lot of quiet places, surprisingly, at the chapel or something like that. Or some of them have even a yoga or meditation room, so that you can choose how to craft your trip so that it really is what you're looking for at that particular time in your life.
Yeah, I really want to interject there because I just think it's not a one size fits all.
No.
And there are so many tours and retreats out there, or there is a lot, and I think people get super overwhelmed. Even I've done it when I've on my personal trips. There's so much on offer. It's like
Yes.
how do you know? And I think exactly what you said, by breaking it down and really analyzing what it is you actually want out of the trip. I've done, work away experiences and woofing where, because I do love animals and I do love being on the land. And it has given me a totally different experience than if I'd just gone on and just ticked off those main sites. Because you do get
Yes.
off the beaten track. You end up in little villages somewhere and you have no idea. And you just hope you're going to the right place. I've done that a few times. But it does lend itself to a totally different experience. And I think and there's nothing wrong either with wanting to tick the main things off as
Exactly.
well. But it's
Exactly.
just finding that right balance and actually, like you said, analyzing that before you go.
Yeah, and I think the more people are able to travel or travel solo, the more they're able to figure out what that means for them. And sometimes it takes having a few trips so that you can figure out what it is you're most wanting.
Yeah, and that's interesting because, I had a woman come on one of my last retreats. Her and her friend came, and it's not that she didn't have a good time, but it was just things didn't, not just with the retreat, but just the trip in general. Nothing aligned.
Oh, yeah.
And sometimes
We've all
that
been there.
happens, and it's
Yes.
just like, okay, you know what you don't want now,
Yep.
and you know what not to do. So even those experiences where things might not turn out exactly how you expected or wanted to happen, again, that's not necessarily even a bad thing. It just teaches you, okay, I know that's not for me now.
Yep.
I've tried it, it didn't work.
Yep.
I think this might work. So I think that's a really relative.
I do too. I think it can be that perhaps the most important thing that we can pack or bring with us when we go on a trip is our mindset. That if we are able to come with curiosity, come with empathy, come with gratitude, come with some mindfulness, the only thing that's guaranteed on your trip is that it's not going to all go according to plan. So how do we manage those things that are challenging? And then there's also things that I know you also provide. There's so many skills that we can have so that we can reduce the number of frustrations. But some of those frustrations, some of those challenges, they make the best travel stories afterwards. And you really come home and think, my goodness, I can do so many things. I'm so capable.
And I have 100% have had that happen. Some of I can't go into a lot of detail with some of them, but it's like, and I message them afterwards and I'm like, you've done this? You can do anything now.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
I was remembering I went on a hike in Yosemite before I really knew a lot about backpacking. And we only had a 3-season tent and it started snowing. So it was dripping into the tent. So we decided we needed to leave to get down to the night, and we wouldn't make it down taking the regular trails. So we decided we would take the trail next to the waterfalls. And I'm a very short person, and some of these steps were like half my height next to a waterfall with our backpacks on. And I was pregnant at the time and I was crying. I was like, this is so hard. I don't know, but there's no solution but to go through it.
Yeah.
Like one foot after another. You just have to do it. And at the end, we made it down. We caught the last bus just in the nick of time. And then later, a few months later, when I was in labor giving birth and it was so hard, I was thinking, I did that hike. I can do anything.
I love it how you relate it to childbirth.
But when we push ourselves often through travel, we really do see how strong we are and capable we are.
Yeah, and I think we need to be taken out of our environment to
Yes.
experience that sometimes, because otherwise you're not in a place where you can try these things, or you're not And it is sometimes you're forced to. I know, like, I was quite an introvert before I started traveling, extremely shy. And
Yeah.
like traveling, I had to start talking to people. I just had
Yes.
to. And now I find it so much easier.
Now you're hosting a podcast.
No, I know, exactly. So you can do anything. But it is, and it does teach you a lot. And I love how when you really start to think about it and break it down, I when you go somewhere, quite often all the weight that's been on you, I'm just trying to find the
Yeah.
right words, but all the weight that's been on you comes away. And so also sometimes it becomes very emotional as well, because
Yes.
you have time to have clarity and reflection. Do you think that is something you've experienced, or you know from your clients?
Yes. I know that it's true, and there's a lot of evidence behind it also that when we are out of our routine, one thing is that we're noticing so much more about the world. And that leads right into mindfulness, right? That, like, as we're both sitting in our rooms right now, or as the listeners are in their space, probably a lot of what's around us is very familiar. Our brains aren't even registering a lot of the sensory data that's coming in because it is so familiar. It's already
Mm.
filled in those blanks. But when we're traveling, so much is fresh, so much is brand new, and we are aware of the sounds and the scents and the textures all around us, and it makes it vivid memories. Like if you ask
Yeah.
people to share some of their best memories or some of their, most challenging ones, like we were just talking about, often you'll hear travel stories. And so much of that is solidified in our memory because it is new. It's a novel experience, and so much of the sensory data is brand new too for us. So, yes, I totally agree with you and have had that experience. I love talking with people about their experiences in that way. And then there's even the science to back it up.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
I've had that where, and I think especially as women, we've got so much on our plates, and we just have to push through and whatever in life, and just get things done. And when we have that moment to ourselves, which travel often facilitates, that's when everything comes away.
Yes. Yeah.
And I find people just break down, or they start crying at
Yeah.
nothing, and
Yeah.
it's not a bad thing, and
It's a
it's actually
beautiful,
quite
often
uh,
beautiful. Yeah.
yeah, I was just gonna say it's really, really powerful, and it's powerful to witness it. I'm not gonna say that's going to happen to everyone, but I have seen it. No, I've witnessed it. I can remember I was in Florence, and I can't remember the name of the church. You're probably better than me, but the amazing church that's in Florence with the big dome, and you can actually go up inside the dome. Do you know the name?
I do, but I can't remember it right now.
Yeah, it's amazing. If you know the name, anyone, please pop it in the comments. And you can actually go up inside the
Don't.
dome, which is incredible, and then come out
Oh,
on the roof. And
yeah.
then the bells throughout Florence toll at a certain time of day. So I was up on this thing, and all these bells on all the churches started tolling, and it was like they'd follow. It
Oh,
seemed like it was one after the other. And it was one of those, wow, I'm here, I'm by
yeah.
myself. But it was just, yeah, it was quite a powerful experience. It was very simple, like it wasn't, but it really touched me. And it, like you said, those memories, and I
Mhm.
suppose it's those sensory things I was getting, it's really stayed with me. And I think that's such a powerful thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I've had, I think one of my favorite things about travel is that it so much more easily than in our everyday life can lead to those transcendent moments like what you're just talking about.
Yeah.
And when we really do feel connected, back to Siska's question at the beginning, everything from, standing at the Grand Canyon and feeling yourself as part of this planet on, at the same time being minuscule and
Yeah.
also magnificent part of this deep connection. Or one time, our family, for a birthday gift, my husband had given me, we hired an art archaeologist, to take us through the Paleolithic caves in the Dordogne in France.
Oh my God, I love that. That's like, I'd love that present. Oh my God.
We did love her. Well, I had read her book. He had given me her book as a gift, and I had
Oh,
read it and was
wow.
like, "Oh my gosh, this is amazing." And then we decided, let's let's actually hire her for a day together. And so
Wow.
she brought us through a lot of those caves. She was a super interesting woman. And one of the places that she brought us was Bernafal. And unlike the caves that are open to the public, this one is actually on private land, but she knew the farmer. And so we parked on the side of the road and walked through the woods and got to the front of the cave and put on all our warmer clothes. And she had a key and opened up this big metal door. We went inside. She had a flashlight. There was no switch to turn on light in there. And as our eyes became accustomed to the light, we were able to see bison and horses and all of these animals and hatch marks and markings on the walls. And it was so powerful to be in there with just our family and with her. There were just 6 of us. It felt like we were so connected to people from 12,000 years ago when this art was made. And then finally, she lets the light fall on a face. There's not a lot of faces in Paleolithic art.
No.
And so it is a face, assuming somebody's making a portrait, perhaps a self-portrait. And that connection that all of us shared with each other, with humanity on this bigger scale, and with, that sense of connection with other human beings, like what you were talking about at the Duomo in Florence, that being so present and alive, and then that incredible sense of gratitude that we get when we have those transformative experiences.
Oh, that gave me chills. I love that, because when I was in Cuba, I don't know if you know, there's caves there right out
Uh,
on the point,
uh,
and it's got ancient drawings
Petroglyphs. Yeah.
in these caves, and because I'd researched it, you'd be very proud of me. And I took there's like a bus, a circuit bus, and there's nothing there. It's like a reserve, and there was a tiny literally a little grass hut, no real signs, no people were around. So I got dropped off, and I thought, oh God, am I in the road? Another weird, just me lost in the middle of nowhere again. The guy that was in the hut, I think he was very surprised to see anybody. And I just paid him a few pesos to get in. There was nobody there. And I went into these caves. If you didn't like bats, it was definitely not a place for you. But they were limestone caves. So there were a lot of old, I would have assumed maybe blowholes or whatever. So there was light dotting coming in.
Wow.
But he gave me a torch. And like you said, these weren't so much drawings of animals, but they were abstract art,
Patterns,
spirals and lines that obviously meant, very intricate lines, like crazy images. But I just was fascinated that, I was standing here, someone else was standing here thousands of years ago, making the effort when, that was survival. Every day was survival, but they took this time to create this art for whatever reason, and we don't really know. But, it was just, I didn't touch the actual paintings, but just to be that close to them.
Yeah.
It is, and it's so much more about realizing how connected we are really to each other. We think, this is an age, I think, where we're so disconnected with each other. And I think moments like that really brings you back to how connected we actually are as humans.
I couldn't agree more, Gina. Then I think when we take that experiences like what you were just talking about back out into our lives and decide, how am I going to interact with the strangers that I pass on the street, or how am I going to interact with my loved ones when we're disagreeing, or how am I going to participate in my community or my country's politics? When you've had those experiences where you do feel so connected to the rest of humanity or to the planet, it significantly impacts all these other day-to-day choices. So I love that.
100%. And that sort of segues really good into this sort of next thing I want to touch on with you, which you're very knowledgeable in, is further learning. Like, how can we carry all this stuff into our day-to-day life and further learning, especially as solo women travelers? What are some of your tips regarding that?
Thanks. I love the question. It's very dear to my heart. So, like, just like you were talking about, that you had done some research before you went there into that cave, and then it was a richer experience. Like, I remember when we went to Greece and in Athens, my husband and I both happened to major in philosophy. And so it was really special to go to Athens and everything. And one of the sites there is Plato's Academy. Unlike many of the other sites throughout Greece, it hasn't had the funding to be rejuvenated or attended. And so it is kind of sadly in a, a rundown park. And there are some of the remains of the buildings where Plato taught, and in many ways, such an important part of the history of human thought happened
Yes.
right there in that space. And yet there aren't really signs around it, just, pointing in the direction, and there isn't any interpretation. Similar to your experience in the hut. You were there on your own, but there wasn't a guide or book or anything. And yet we had one of those transcendent experiences we were just talking about. We were standing there crying because of what we had learned before we went.
Yeah.
That so much of the experience was because of what we invested before we arrived. So I um, think taking time before we go can really make our travels so much richer. I'm sure all of the listeners can think of a time when, maybe they learned some of the language and they were able to interact with people, or maybe they knew more about the food and they were able to appreciate things. But I also know everybody's really busy, and the last thing anybody needs is some homework. So I always encourage people to think about, what do you already love to do? Or if you're traveling with other people, what do they love to do? And how can you overlap that with the place that you plan to visit? And then how can you build that into your time before you go? I encourage people to think about, what are things that you enjoy watching? So if you like to do a Friday night movie night, take an afternoon and dig in and find some of the best films, documentaries, anime. If you're in it doesn't have to be anything scholarly or anything like that. It could be a comedy, a sitcom from that country. But as you're watching it, it will probably spark all kinds of questions for you. Like, I love historical dramas, and some of them are so far away from reality, but that when the movie ends or the episode ends, then I'm looking it up. Did that really happen? Did that person really say that? Yeah, you do the same. And then by the time I arrive, I have all this I can bring with me. We can also think of things that we listen to. And so if you're a podcast listener, which your listeners are, what can you find podcasts related to the country? And can you find, if you love art podcasts related to it? If you love history or drama or crime, true crime or something, can you find things that already overlap with what you do, but it would allow you, when you get there, to see and experience it in a much richer way. We can also listen to music. It could be traditional music, or it could be modern music. You could find audiobooks, things like that. We can also think about things that we can do at home. So again, if you love cooking, maybe you start by watching a cooking show based on the region. You start to get curious. Why are those spices there? Is it related to trade routes and history, or is it related to the geography of the area and the weather patterns? And it starts to layer it. Maybe you go to a market at your house or near your house so that you can find some of those ingredients, learn more about it. Maybe you want to go on a food tour when you're there. Maybe you're finding the restaurants. There are all of these ways that you can layer it. But there are so many things we can do at home, like playing games, doing art projects, all kinds of
I love these
things.
ideas. They're so good. Like, I love creating stuff. So quite often when I go away, I find a workshop or a day workshop or something where you make stuff like jewelry or maybe pottery. Like, I'm going to Vietnam next month and I want to do the paper lanterns.
Lovely.
So,
Perfect.
and they're also something quite cool because then they're very personal and you can bring them home.
Love that. Love that. Yeah. So definitely while you're traveling, what a wonderful thing to do. And then also when you're home, that those can be things that you're integrating into your life, into that, months or weeks or years before you go somewhere, so that when you're finally there, you understand it in this richer way. Obviously, another one is things that you could be reading. And so, most of us get our guidebook or something early on, and that's super fun. But there are, you can think about myths or fairy tales, coffee table books, poetry. There's such a multitude. So what do you already enjoy reading? Can you find that related to the place that you're going to? And then, of course, things that you could be doing near your home. So, going to local restaurants or museum exhibits or performances or any of those things. So that is what I originally was so focused on at Trip Scholars. I've got a free guide that offers many different of these activities. Perfect. So that you can really find what you would enjoy doing and then just keep layering it in the time before you go on your trip. And I promise it will make your trip even better.
Yeah, and I love that a lot of these ideas, one thing you didn't say was do a Google search, because and it 100% has its place, but I have really noticed too, what one's person experiences is not necessarily going to be the next person's. So you could go, I'm going to XYZ. What was your experience? You see this in groups all the time, and someone will come back, I had the worst experience and they didn't have this and I couldn't find that. Well, maybe, like you said, they didn't do their research. I definitely saw this when I went to Cuba, the amount of people, the comments, I'm like, well, did you not do your research? So don't rely on, if someone else says, I didn't enjoy a certain place, that doesn't mean you're not going to enjoy it. So I think everything you've said, in this episode is so important, that, find out what it is you really want, your interests, and then shape it from there.
Yeah. Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, I really like working with families. And one of the main concerns that a lot of parents have is, especially as kids get older, how do I get buy-in? Like, how do I have my teenager not want to stay in the hotel room the whole time? And I really think leaning into these activities before you go. What does your teenager like to do? How can you find a video game about the place that you're going to? It's an incredibly rich array of great video games out there, or role-playing games, or card games, or board games. There's so many choices. Or can you find sports that they're interested in, or music, and just have it playing in the car so that they start to build in some buy-in. Do they like cooking? Let them be in charge of finding the food chore.
That's so good. And I think, like you said about, sports, you can, and it's another way to really great way to experience another culture is to go to a local event. So whether it's with your partner, by yourself, with your family, with your children, whoever, if they're interested in, I don't know, softball or soccer, which have been, see if there's a local game on. I think that's such a great idea. And the same with events, maybe there's a craft event on, or a food festival on, or something. Yeah.
Yeah. That travel is so personal. And when we approach it from that place of curiosity, those things we already love about life or interested in life, it opens such a wonderful door to trips, instead of, just ticking off the things that everybody else says, these are the top 5 things to do in this city.
Yeah. And I think we could keep talking literally forever. Like, we had a big conversation before we pushed record. So I just going to round off the episode on that note. I think you've just shared some such valuable insight there. But as a fun thing, it's just very lighthearted. We do our quick fire round at the end.
I like your show, so I know your rapid round. Yeah.
Nothing too serious. Here's quite a good one, because I think this suits you. What is a travel goal you've had to strike off your bucket list? So what's something you've had on your bucket list and you just had to tick that one off?
Actually go and do?
Yes.
The fjords in Norway.
That's so, because from listening to you, you've got so many amazing things you've done. So I was quite surprised you answered that so quickly. What is one thing you always buy as a souvenir from a country? How some people have their little things that they collect. Is there something you do?
I actually have a few things I do like to collect. One of them is wooden spoons, handcrafted things that I can use in the kitchen. And so I do have a beautiful wooden spoon. I love to oil them, and I've probably got about 6 or 7 of them, and then also a cutting board from another trip. So, and it's just lovely. I mean, serving it at dinner time with a spoon from Costa Rica is just a great experience.
And I love it that you can actually use it. It's such a good idea. Yeah, I love that. Here, backpack or suitcase? Sort of goes back to your hiking story.
Yeah. I prefer a backpack, but I am about to have a total knee replacement surgery. So lately it's been a roller suitcase. Not my favorite, but I still get to go on my trips. Hoping to get back to the backpack.
Easy one, city, escape, or nature retreat?
I always try to have both of them if I can, but if I had to pick, nature.
Yeah, definitely. And last one, window or aisle seat?
Window.
Yes, me too. I end up in like a little cocoon ball. Because if it's just me.
Yeah, I love looking out the window.
Oh, and that too. At night.
Yeah.
Nighttime is amazing. Like I've seen some incredible lightning storms.
Yeah.
And when you fly over, you see it like, when you look at the map of where you are.
Yes.
And you're in the middle of some desert and you look down and there's lights and you think, what are those lights?
What is going on down there? Yeah, when I was a science teacher, I got to teach a lot of physical science, and I just love geology. So it is exceptional to be able to see it from up high. It's incredible.
It really is. So, and then the last thing, obviously, how we started the episode, we're going to end it with our signature Pass the Parcel question. So what is your question for our next guest?
My question is, do you have a quote in any way related to travel that inspires you? And if so, why? What does it mean to you?
Love that. I can't wait to hear what the quote is. I am very much a quote person, so that's a really great question. So thank you so much, Erica. You've been an absolute joy to have on. I'm so excited that you finally did get to join us. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Gina. It has been my pleasure. I was really looking forward to it. I love your podcast, so I was happy to get to be here with you.
And where can guests find you?
Well, thanks. I'm at tripscholars.com, and then I am all over social media at Trip Scholars, and my podcast is Conversations for Curious Travelers. You could find it anywhere you listen to podcasts.
And I'm also going to put all the information to find Erica down below in the comments. So I just want to thank you, everybody, for joining us also. And remember to like, comment, and subscribe, share the love, and join us next time. And remember, it's never too late to unleash your wanderlust.
Thank you, Gina. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening. Please share the love by liking, commenting, or subscribing, or join us in our Facebook community.